Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Brian. EJ. Scott. Here. Shelley. Here. Here. We need a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any acknowledgements?
No, not this time.
Conflict of interest, where is it? Open forum time.
It's not done going around. You just have to write there.
Everybody needs to sign it. Sign it. Well, want to speak.
Confused. Dave wants to speak.
Dave wants to sign.
Dave Speck wants to speak.
Go ahead.
All right, Dave, you're up.
I'm the only one to speak?
Yeah.
No.
You don't want to speak now? Do you want to speak now?
Only the only guy that's gonna talk?
No, he said you could go
Go
first.
ahead.
For the last 3 or 4 years, we've been fighting over this school. It's been going on a lot longer than that, too. Now, here's what we have. We've had two architects. We've had 6 different plans, maybe more. We've had anywhere from an $18 million school, which some people don't think exists, down to a $700,000 fix-up. We've had strategic planning. We've had 4 or 5 surveys. We've had community get-togethers. And last of all, we had a building committee. And this building committee basically failed us. They were supposed to come up with a compromise. And I don't think they did, from what I understand. I don't think they did. I think they're still arguing. And from what I understand, they might have even disbanded it now. I don't know if they're going forward or what. So, our school board had a plan. And if the building committee can't come up with a compromise or can't come up with something that we can put to a vote, then I think the school board should put their plan to a vote. If it fails, it fails. At least let the taxpayers decide it. Because I've lived here for 70 years, and there ain't nobody in this town going to get along. At least probably not a majority, one way or the other. So let the taxpayers decide it. If they vote for it, we do it. If they don't, we're done. But I think the school board needs to put it to a vote. Thank you.
Anybody else? Gloria.
I'm not quite sure where to start. I was just going to say that my major concern is there's too rushed. It's just too rushed. I disagree with Dave from the standpoint that the building committee has failed. I think we were moving along quite well, and then something happened, and all of a sudden there's a new plan at the board meeting that the committee didn't see, and then it took us a week to meet. And in that amount of time, we've seen 3 plans in a couple days, one last night. I think we're getting closer. I think we still have a lot of issues to figure out. As far as I'm concerned, I want the very best building that we can have for our kids. I don't care so much how big it is, as long as it fits the purpose for education. And we've seen, it's still just, I think we need to just look it over more and more. The one we saw last night, I'm seeing 2 urinals and 1 stall for the whole high school, and 2 urinals and a stall in the gym area. Now, I haven't had time to look at a lot, but that's not enough. When we get done with this, whether we spend 7.9 or 8.5, because I'm not tight on the number. Farmers pay the big brunt. But if your fuel prices go up, you figure out how to survive. And so if we're talking 10 cents more in taxes for the betterment of a 50-year school, then I think we need the time to figure it out. And I think this last one that we got last night has some promise. But I don't think we're there yet, and we're not ready for a vote. Before we go to a vote, we have to have pictures for the community. This stuff is hard to understand, even for people that work with it all the time. We have to have pictures, we have to have answers to every question that can possibly come up. And we don't have that yet. And so if it takes another year, let it take another year. I don't know what the rush is, because we're gonna live with whatever we do for at least 50 years. And so please slow down and just keep working at it. And keep the building committee helping you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Randy?
I'm trying to figure out how to put what I'm thinking in words in a fairly short amount of time. I agree with Dave that there's been a lot of division in our community. There's a lot of different thoughts on how we should proceed and how we should move forward. I just want to tell you what I think is a process should be followed to heal our community, provide the best education we can for our children, and be financially responsible at the same time. Yes, we've been at this for a while, but we haven't been at it the right way until just recently. I was so optimistic a few months ago. We finally decided we're going to put together a committee representing a variety of interests. And we're going to look at a plan for the entire system, not just a potential Band-Aid for one part of the building. And I was so optimistic. And then a few weeks ago, Cheryl called me from exercise class and said, "Randy, they're presenting a plan for the school." I came over here and I saw a plan that I'd never seen before, and I found out that at that meeting that the members on the building committee had not even seen it before. And I'm thinking, this is not how you do things. And I understand there have been 2 revisions to those plans since then. I don't know whether this is the best plan or not. But I believe if we want to heal long term, if we want to do what's best, we let the building committee work. We let them argue, we let them debate, we let them research. And they come back, and they compromise, and they research, and they debate. And I don't care if it takes 2 months or 18 months for that matter. But then when that building committee's done, they come before an open board and present to the board a plan that 80% of that committee believes is in the best interest of our community and our school for the future. And then the board members can look at that plan, consider that plan, and if they believe that plan does indeed meet the needs of our community, they pass that plan unanimously. If we go out with a divided vote from a non-existent building committee that didn't really come up with a final solution, it's a recipe for moving backwards, not forwards. If we let that plan work, I believe, and I might be naive, I believe we can help bring our community together. We can provide a school that we can be proud of and that serves the interests of our children and our grandchildren for years to come, and can be financially responsible to the patrons who have to pay the cost. But please, let the process work.
Randy, do you believe in a democratic process?
Oh, I do, absolutely. I absolutely believe in a democratic process. I don't believe, Jerry, and if you're going to talk to me, I think I should be able to respond, correct? I don't believe that a divided committee, and you can't get everybody, Jerry, I absolutely know that. 20% of the people would vote against anything we ever propose.
I'm talking about how the building committee was formed. The
You know,
building committee was formed, was not a democratic process.
see, and I wasn't involved in that.
2 people made up the majority of the committee. That's a fact.
Okay.
I asked our strategic plans that the school board was supposed to come up with a committee. That did not happen. 2 people made up the majority of the committee. And that's a fact, and it's slanted one way. It was stacked in one way, and that's a fact.
So, and my response to that, Jerry, is if we found out the committee was stacked, first of all, the board should not have let that happen. That's my
So
opinion.
when you
I'm
can't
sorry.
get things on the agenda, it's hard to, it wasn't a democratic process.
So, you're putting me on the spot here, and I appreciate that, but here's the thing. If this committee, there's two concerns. You have a concern with the committee. I have a concern that there's potential members on that committee, and I didn't even want to go this direction, but don't even believe in any improvements for the future. Okay? So, but,
You
so,
don't
so,
think,
so if
that
the
you don't
community
think the school gets run by the entire community? I mean, you gotta
Oh,
have, people pay their taxes, there's people that, don't wanna do an alderman bill. You don't think they should have any
Oh, I
representation?
think they do too. I think everybody should
So
be
why-
represented. But my point is, I don't, if the committee was set up wrong, then fix the committee.
We tried.
I don't understand how the board can.
We tried, but at the time, the superintendent, I mean, it was a no-go. No, we tried, yeah.
How was
Put it
the
on
committee
agenda.
chosen?
I
The
don't even know how to
superintendent
answer
and the
that.
chair picked the majority of the committee.
And the chair is a board member, correct?
Yep.
And you all stand united as a board.
I asked for it to be put on an agenda for a discussion. Was not done. The names were put up on the, come to the meeting, they put the names of the committee up on the screen. And then it was a done deal.
So once again, Jerry, as long as you address me, I'm going to respond. Once again, that if the problem is the makeup of the committee, then maybe that should be the next step. You have the power as a board. You can push something through that I can't even tell you whether it's good or bad because, once again, I saw a brand new one when I walked in the door today. But if the problem is the makeup of the committee, then fix that. I just think there's a way to make this work long-term for the benefit of everyone. If that means you need to work on the committee, makeup, I don't, to me, those are two somewhat separate issues, but that's what I believe, guys.
So I'd just like to add, as far as open forum, it's really not a time for discussion, but I am not the chair, so I guess that's beside the point.
Well, I recognize Randy, so we can have a dialogue. So.
But as far as that committee went, every board member got to choose somebody, so I'm not sure the makeup, if it's swayed, if it's just because there were staff members on it to help, and the staff members tried to cover all aspects of the school, from technology to the special ed program, to high school, to elementary, to make sure all facets of the school were represented.
How did you arrive at the fact that you know that it's a fact that the committee is swayed one way?
Well, that's my opinion, I guess, but.
Okay.
Well, I would say that too. And we were gonna make a deal of it, but then it got put up on the board and then it looked like that's who was gonna be on the committee, so we just left it alone then.
Sure.
I mean, what we're gonna do, try to change it once they're already up there? There's nothing we can really do.
I was just wondering how that was a fact.
How
Did you all pick?
chosen is a fact. How the process it was chosen, that's a fact.
Did you each pick two?
No. We got to pick one
And then the others were,
from the superintendent and the chair.
Can I speak, Jared?
Okay.
As a member of the committee, what I was told, and I believe that it's the way it worked, there's two school board members on it. They are the building committee. The superintendent and the principal, which I feel like need to be on the committee. There are 5 people from the community. Each board member chose one. The board president chose 2. And I think that was based on precedent, something prior. And I don't remember exactly right now what that was. Then there was an elementary person. There was a secondary person. There's the IT person. There's the maintenance head. And the special ed director. Now, from my history and education, when the designed to come up with what works best with the building, not being in favor of, I mean, to me, the money should almost be the second step. You come up with what works best for your community first, and in order to do that, you need to have a good representation from elementary, secondary, and the administration, as well as the school board. And then the 5 other people were the community. If you pick the committee based on what you think they're gonna vote for or not vote for, you don't necessarily have any expertise on that committee. I thought we were functioning as a board, a committee that maybe had some
There were staff
direction.
members on that committee, as said before, nobody wants a building. They said that at meetings.
Well, can I speak?
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I think we're kind of coming together, don't you? I mean, as a committee?
I think.
And I think what happened this last time is
Yeah.
we kind of had a number, and then you guys took it back to the teachers, right? And then when you come back with that other plan, then it ended up at 9.3, because they'd increased some, I mean, the teachers wanted some stuff, so then that's kind of where that other plan come from. Well, 9.3 is more than what we're willing to do, so we were, well, then I guess you brought this other plan to kind of compromise there too, but I guess the way I look at it, we're kind of compromising. I don't think everybody's ever gonna get everything they want. It's
But we're
just not
getting
gonna
closer.
happen.
We're getting closer. I mean, I think from that last meeting we had 5 or 6 weeks ago, and even with these 3 in the last couple of days, I just don't think we're ready to push it to people yet. I think we have a chance to, I agree with Randy, we have a chance to put this stuff back together, but we want to be proud of this thing when we're done, because otherwise we're going to live with it, and it's going to be a thorn in everybody's side. Just let the process work and give it time.
Anybody else?
I am a taxpayer, and I want
A
to
tax
say,
patron.
and I want to have a vote. We have a committee. It wasn't put together right. I don't think I think they say things, but then they don't really mean it. I think it's a stall tactic. There is a good plan out there. It looks nice. It's in the right amount of range of money. I think it's time. If all we do is say, oh, we need more time, oh, we need more time, oh, we need more time, then all that happens is more fighting, more harassment, more horrible things on social media by people who do not know how to use their social media accounts. And it just continues on and on. It is time. Make a decision.
Corey, can I ask, you said there's a good plan out there, which one is it?
I like the one that came at the Monday, the October 8th meeting. 7-9. I think it addressed many issues. I think you even had some extravagance in there. It's time.
Well, there's a new plan today, I'm not sure if you knew that, but there's a new plan yet today.
Well, I think it's time.
That's for you guys to look at.
It's time to move on.
I'm gonna support what the board wants.
So we'll move on into
Weird.
the business and finance. We'll go over the new plans now. We'll have Dean go over, yes.
Is what you want.
Yeah.
You know, as architects, we respond to input, and we did. And one of the plans that we had was input from the teachers, and that might have, from when we went from the 8th, or before the 8th, which was the building committee. And Buffy, who is an architect in my office, we put together a plan that met all the needs, and in some cases, the square footage got a little high. So then we put a number to that, which was the latest, based on projects we bid, and it was at 9,300,000. There was a concern, and having talked with Toby, and he can answer some of that, about maxing out the capital, or the amount that can be bonded within the school district. Having some discussion with the school board members and Scott, I look at Scott, which I don't mean, but we had talked, or the input I got back, that the board was looking at 8 million, and they had said we need to look at a plan of 8 million. You know, so the plan that was presented on the 8th was a little harsh, in my opinion, and that's taken back from the committee that we met on Wednesday night, which we came up with, and that was, like Kelly said, 7.9 million, because that was it, which is within the numbers. But it was, everything was taken out of the high school, and that was probably, from what we heard on Wednesday night, which we believe that we went back yesterday, and that's where it happens though, is what we're trying to respond to the building committee. And we went back as a, Buffy and myself yesterday, and we thought what we heard is the compromises and saying, okay, we got the 8 million, but we need to look at the high school. We need to have the support of the teachers, which we didn't feel we had on Wednesday night's meeting. So we looked at that and we did our priorities. Now we took and trying to say with the compromise, and you know, some of the people over here said, you know, we need to look at the elementary school to upgrade it in order to, for what's for the students. So what we did is, and looked at it, that the elementary school, we would do the remodeling interior, you know, the bathrooms, you know, taking the cubbies, not losing the space, trying to give the people the space. But we did not do the exterior, which is the windows, putting the EFS on, putting the sloped roof. We just went to repairing the rubber roof on what's there, because that is considerably less. We were, obviously, at one time, we had a $700,000 number, but that included some exterior. But we made the decision as a group, and it's not, that's to go back to the building committee, which we were hoping that we do, but then we put that money into the high school and trying to say, this is what we heard. It is not everything for the high school, but we're certainly within those numbers of the set, we're at 7.8 something, so basically 7.9, to, as an architect, to respond to what we heard as, you know, in the committee. So we feel that this is a step in the right direction as far as answering those concerns of the teachers to get their support, along with what Scott, and you know, I pointed Scott and BJ because we were at one point where we had a community meeting and everybody said in the elementary school, we had the $700,000 plan, and they said, that's not enough, you need to do all this other stuff. Well, when we got to 1.9 million, and it, you know, it was a struggle for us to say that that is worth the money to put into that building. So we went back now and we looked and said, we're going to update the bathrooms, we're gonna do the cubbies, we put a wall in order to have the cubbies in the room. We didn't eliminate we addressed the sped, which they said, you know, was we really heard some blowback on that. So we looked and we put our priority into updating the elementary school for what the kids are, not the exterior, not the windows, not the roof, and not the exterior, which can be done at a later time, is what we thought. We ended up at $1 million, but then we turned around and put that money into the high school. And this is just an option. This is, and I agree, we didn't have time. I mean, we didn't get done with this until 6 o'clock last night. So, and I sent it to Scott, but we sent it. So that's it just takes time. You just can't put these plans together and try and, in some of the urinals, you know, we can make the bathrooms bigger, but this does meet the code. But is it right? No, we can add some more urinals or something, but it's working with what I think, or what Buffy and I heard at the committee, or the building committee meeting, which was very disappointed in the plan that, and I say it to everybody, Buffy calls it my plan. Well, I cut it back from what the 9.3, because we said we can't come to the building committee and say this plan's 8 million when we know it's 9.3, and then have this go out for bids and then have everybody mad because we cut everything back. This is our thoughts, when we bid the last 2 projects within the last year, these are the numbers, and saying, we know we can build this, and then we can do alternates and stuff to increase some things if we want, once we're under, if it were to go to a vote and pass and go to bid. So that's the compromise of the plan, which is moving more towards answering the concerns of the high school, and I think you know, and Steve and Dwight were all there. There was people that were, teachers that were not happy with other people, but, you know, Scott and BJ were there too, and they're saying, you know, we need to look at updating the elementary school. So we tried to do a priority, you know, and answer everything we could, so.
I got a question for you. How much did you spend on the way to South Shore High School?
Like 2.8 million,
How about high school?
5.4 million.
Well, just the high school, that was the.
Well, there's, no, that's the whole school,
That was-
elementary, there was not just a high school.
Okay, so that was elementary and high school.
Yes, correct.
Did you get the staff on board? I mean, was the staff on board with that?
Yes, there's building committee.
How'd you do that? How'd you get the staff on board for this? But, I mean, we can't get the staff on board for a $5.5 million high school. I'm just astonished at that.
It's kind of, I think that this building committee, well, we were, and they'll say that they were very excited about the plan before, but it was 9-3, and it was you know, we had the meeting the other night, it was a reality check, but I guess our job is to bring the answer, I guess, the compromise and bring back to the building committee at that, and the teachers to get them on board. I mean, it is working towards it, and, you know, Bison was, you know, their school was in the position that they needed a new school. I mean, I think everybody.
Science couldn't identify some of the stuff going in the basement advice.
Yeah, there was some major.
They had a coal-fired boiler, I kid you not.
Yeah.
A 1938 coal-fired boiler.
I guess what
They did,
well, taking the roof off, I mean, the roof is giving us problems on the elementary, and I guess that was the main concern of mine. I don't know. We take that off. I guess you know, last year when we tried to scale it back, we got hammered. It was just putting a Band-Aid on it now. I guess this Plan D that you had brought to the board meeting on Monday, I think it's a compromise. Is that still on the table? Can we go with that, or?
it's not, it's our, I mean, we're presenting them, it's not our decision, it's what I guess you would say what the building committee, if you're asking for me, it's what the board wants to do, and that'd be up to the people of the building committee to say whether they support D or E is what it comes down to, because the last plan is E now versus, so.
So I guess I'll throw out with that Plan D, it was kind of a 30-minute sit-down, looked it over, and this is what I came up with for my concerns. I don't know how many people have looked it over and really studied it, so they may have other areas that they see as concerns too. But I'm just going to go through and list them just because I want them out there. And Plan D.
That's the October 8th one, right?
One of the first things I saw were the hallways were super, super long. This was something when we looked 3 years ago. The school themselves said if they could do it differently, that would be one thing they would change. The IT room on that plan is a long ways from the elementary. I'm not sure that it appears there's any type of landscaping or hardscaping figured into that plan. So where there are doors and grass up to them, do we have concrete slabs, any type of landscaping figured in for any of that? There are no extra classrooms, it appears, for any kind of expansion for our district. So we are going to have a new facility that limits us in everything we can do. If we want to implement an art program, where would they go? If we want to someday move our 6th grade to a middle school, as everybody is doing, we just have not done that yet, where will they go? In that plan, it is not an option to put them together. Is the band room, music room big enough? Our numbers have become quite small in the past years. They are rapidly growing. I don't know that myself. I have not talked to the music teacher. Maybe it is big enough. I just question that as a question to be answered. The exterior on this plan, we don't have anything. I know, Dean, you said that would be something you would work on. I just questioned we're going to leave the shop building stand as is. It's a 3-story building, And so we are looking now at a one-story building that is gonna butt up against that. Have we figured in dollars to close up where that now attaches to our high school? Because that would be that wall would essentially be open to the outside when we tear the rest of it off. And how is that gonna look aesthetically on the outside when you're done with a new project? You don't want an eyesore to drive by every day. The boardroom. It certainly doesn't look big enough. So the meetings that we have recently, we would be displaced almost on a regular basis to a different location. So if we're gonna put in a boardroom, make it big enough to accommodate the people and the numbers that we have at our meetings. Library doesn't appear to be big enough for any future expansion, and that would include if we ever went to having the county library join in this same facility. The business office, in my opinion, seems tucked way in there. If anybody's looked at that, you go through an office to get back down in there, down a hallway. Just an opinion. The superintendent's office seems to be off the beaten path, just kind of seems detached from the classrooms. And with that position holding elementary principal, I think they need to be connected in there with the students as well. I don't like the idea, or it just seems weird, I guess, every flow of traffic has to go through the entire kitchen area to get anywhere into the building. It seems like a lot of extra steps, a lot of waste. With things going on in the lunchroom, I just find it to be kind of awkward, I guess. I am not a fan at all of any of the bathroom setups, and I understand they're done this way because they save space and they save money. Our staff and our students are in this building 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year. If we're gonna save on something, I do not believe this is a place to try to save. Going to the bathroom is a very private deal, and whatever you do in there, I think we need to make it a private place and make them comfortable when they're in that building that many hours a day. And that would mean keeping the sinks within the bathroom. The locker areas in the elementary. I'm sorry, Dean, but I'm not sure why that would ever be put onto paper to show anybody.
We directed.
To make those locker bays?
Yeah, and you can see they're gone in the next one, so.
Okay, because that would be nothing but complete chaos. All the classrooms or all the sinks in the classrooms, every classroom in that elementary, they're being moved. That's a lot of money going into that. There's no commons area left in that plan, which was a big part that a lot of people really liked. It's a way of, just like new technology these days, it's a new way of teaching and it's a new environment for the kids. And now it's gone to save a little bit of money. The location of the music room was also a concern from years ago. It was stated to us, you want to make sure your music room is in a place where it's not disruptive to any other classes. So I don't know if there are other measures being taken for sound, but there are classrooms around it. It's near the lunchroom, the main traffic flow. So when there's always music coming from that room, I would say that might be an issue. There's no separation, it doesn't appear, between the junior high and high school students. That was always a concern, and I thought was still a concern to kind of keep some separation so you're not throwing those junior high kids in with the mass population of the high school. And I guess on the plan, it doesn't appear there's enough lockers for the numbers that we have now, and maybe that's just part of the drawing and it's not showing it correctly. On there, the mechanical room is not centrally located, but it was explained to me there would be separate air handlers for the elementary, which my question for that was how much maintenance if we're gonna have a separate one for each classroom. And with that, are we gonna have like condensation issues? We just dealt with a big issue down in a college apartment with a certain similar situation with condensation and mold and dripping all the time. So I would hate to do something new and update and have issues with that. And that was my kind of a 30-minute summary of what I saw.
Well, the location of the music room come from the building committee, didn't it? I mean, they wanted instruments close to the auditoriums when they play. So, I don't get that.
I haven't talked to anybody to have that explained to me. That was just a concern and just want to make sure it's being addressed.
Is the boiler, once the project's done, is one boiler to run everything?
Well, what we've got is the split system for the elementary school, which will be on its own. You know, there's really, the boiler room, we put the boiler room, so when we, in order to phase this, I mean, we have to build it somewhere, because you're going to tear out your old boiler room, so that can be built where it's located priority first, because we can't, you know, the boilers run everything around here, so we have to get the boilers up and going. So the location is by the mechanical, electrical engineer saying, this is where this needs to be in order to run the existing facility while you're building the new, you know, and then we gotta build around that, you know, so we have to, and with the new system, now I'm talking two different things, because Kelly's talking about option D, where E, we address some of these things, saying that we are putting a split system in which brings fresh air, but it's the most economical way to do the elementary school. It will not have dripping and you know, condensation, but it is not on the boiler system for the proposed high school, you know, because it will, we can supplement it, but you'd have to do the elementary school first in order, before you do the high school. I mean, it's just, if you gotta look at the phasing, we gotta address the elementary school in order to keep that open. And once you tear down the high school, you're losing your existing boiler, so we have to get the other boiler room up and going. And running piping across to the elementary school, we have to make that all work. So it's phasing type things. A lot of the things that you talked about is, a lot of things on D that we did address with E. But that, I guess, is the question. If we're gonna go with D, some of those things that you're bringing up will need to be addressed. But other things we would switch to E, and for instance, the bathrooms, that's just, you know, security-wise, they're not having the sinks in the room anymore, because they want, you know, for people going for people getting abused, you know, that's how what they're recommending, how it does. They don't have the sinks as much in the bathrooms anymore, because they get people out, and so they're in and out. We can always address those different things, but I didn't write down the things that you're going through on that.
But sometimes when you address those issues, it may take more money, and if we take us to.
Yes, it is. With the sinks, you know, some of the elementary school, the cubbies, that was brought up from a recommendation. It was, to me, it was I never have liked the cubbies. You know,
Well, cubbies are one thing, but a 5-foot area with 2 classes tucked in
Right.
a little tunnel.
I know that, and I'd take the other ones out too, and even in E for the preschool and kindergarten, because that could be a commons area. There's just things that we started to try and address. We were losing a classroom to the cubbies. We put them back in the classrooms. We built a wall that we could move in a screen, you know, the board and everything, trying to address some of these concerns that we had from Wednesday night.
So when you put up that wall, how much square footage do you lose in your room to that,
Well, at least 5 feet, I'd say.
in the whole length of the room?
Yeah, across the end, but it's addressing, you know, to get the cubbies in the room, because you can't, and one of the teachers are there. I mean, their hangers are 6 inches apart, you know, in order to have a cubby. What they're recommending is you have a wall between each child, and it just takes up space. So what is the best way to do it, you know? I didn't think that the room with all the cubbies in was a good option, and when we heard on Wednesday night is that we're taking a whole classroom for that, and that's true. So each compromise, we put it back into the classroom, built a wall that we can put all the, you know, the market boards and everything, move it into the classroom a little bit more, and then put those cubbies in. So just a compromise. Is it the solution? No. And then like elevations and stuff, but we have to have a plan. I mean, if we start doing elevations to show what it looks like on the outside, or whatever, and dealing with the different things, we haven't got a plan that everybody's agreeing on right now, so we would like to have that. That's, I guess, our next step. If we get a plan that like you said, 80% of the people agree to it, we can respond to that, so.
With that Plan D, how would the current facilities, the HVAC system, that would just all be tied into the new mechanical room?
Yes. Yes.
I think we need to have a discussion. You mentioned several times about making the library big enough for the county library. We, as a board, have never discussed that. And I know there's some people think that's a good idea. In my opinion, it's a terrible idea. First of all, it's the county, we're gonna get some funding from the county to do this.
Yes, you would.
But,
Yes, you would.
my thing is security. You'll never convince me, you can, with school shootings, you got people from the public to monitor people coming in. Take one person to come in that library with a weapon and get somebody dead. Then it's a bad idea. To keep your schools secure, you gotta monitor people coming in and out. And that's gonna be hard to do when anybody can come up and use the county library at the school. You just will never convince me that's a good idea.
It was like selling Buttes, I think they have what was it, like a card or something they had to get
But
busted.
still, I mean,
But yeah, you always
somebody
have
from the
somebody
public
buzzing
can
them
get
in,
into
you know?
the library where you got kids.
Yeah, but it was like it was like a walk breeze away. It wasn't in Selly Buttes. Well, you always had to have somebody there buzzing.
Yeah, I wasn't on Sunday.
Yeah, but I just think it's a bad idea to have traffic from the outside. Once the school is locked up, that's for security. I just think it's a bad idea to allow people to come in to use the library there. And I don't know, that's just one more thing we're taking out of downtown. Are we just gonna bash the whole downtown in and just be done with it, or what? I don't like that idea at all.
Are we still in open forum?
No.
Oh.
I'd like to say, Bijou, you can, and maybe you can say something too. When I actually asked the teachers what they didn't like about Plan B the other night, I actually asked them that. And they did say the sped wasn't quite big enough, the fax wasn't, but then we decided, I mean, we looked at it and it's the same size as this other one that they were okay with, so that's kind of out. And then the commons was something that they said that it wouldn't have, which not in here, I don't know why the kids couldn't use the cafeteria commons, that's a huge commons. I don't know, that would be something for you guys, but, I didn't hear enough, and I asked them 2 different times, I didn't hear enough things from the teachers that you didn't like about this plan for me to say, well, yeah, I can't do that. Myself, maybe I missed something.
Because I know you have a fax room, I know there was, the Plan D, yeah, they wanted it kind of divided, so it was kind of halfway, 2 separate rooms. But yeah, I mean, that isn't a big deal to put a couple.
Well, they were okay with this one, it's the same size as this one.
Yeah,
Just
it's
didn't
just a
have a
matter
wall
of, yeah,
between
putting your walls and kind of.
I think a lot of that was like multi-use of that room.
Yeah,
Or we have,
multi.
Project, I don't call it.
But I mean, that
Project
wouldn't, yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, that's not a big deal to split that up. And then the cubbies, I mean, we all kind of came to an agreement that that's not ideal. So right there, you get rid of both those cubbies rooms. I mean, you turn the small cubbies into little commons. The bigger one, I mean, you turn that into the sped room, just like on that Plan E.
So, just so that the 3 of us are talking about the same thing here too, because everybody sitting at these tables and probably the Plan E is pretty new to everybody
Yeah.
sitting here,
Yeah,
right?
it is new.
So we're trying to play catch up. We haven't had a chance to talk either. Scott, you're talking about the comparison of the two, because that's
Well,
what
because
DJ was going towards?
we talked about hooking them together, you know,
Yeah.
and then the teachers kind of put this together because they increased the size of some of the rooms. So I mean, yeah, and then that was another problem, the rooms are a little bit smaller in this one, some of them than that one.
And I'm just looking at, again, I'm looking at the Plan E, and Plan E for somewhat the first time. Mr. Lepke showed it to me outside with the sun glaring last night, right when we were getting ready to start football games. Let me ask Jerry, are you prepared to do any comparison of this right now, or?
Well, we can, I guess if you want another committee meeting, that's, you know, and back in June, our goal was to have a vote in November. That's that was our goal. And what I'm worried about is if we stall us out or get backed up, we're gonna lose our ability to get bids. And I am not for patching the roof on the elementary. It's leaking right now, we're still having trouble.
It's not patching, it's just not putting a slope roof on, it's putting a new, what they call it, it's rubber roof, you know, with slopes.
Ladder.
Yeah,
But you only have
20,000.
20,000.
Yeah. Well,
You know, we did tweak the roof in this year's capital budget.
it's, so, I mean, that's, you know, you're $12 a square foot to put a new roof on, and that puts you at like 16.
Is that a ballast roof or is that an
No,
adhered?
not a ballast.
That's an adhered roof? I thought that
They're
was
fully adhered.
around 90,000.
No, it's not 90,000. I guess that, and like Lisa's saying, there's some monies in there that's already in the budget, so, I mean, what we're saying is that we're just not, we're not going to listen to the slope roof on there.
So Jerry, timeframe seems to be a really big issue. If we're not ready to do the project and we don't have everything in place, is it worth pushing it through and spending the money it's gonna take for a vote that it's gonna fail because we are not prepared as a board to take it forward? What's the time, like, why, what's the time frame? Does it have to do with a building project at all?
I thought the goal was in June to get a November goal. That was the
And that was said, that was a pretty big stretch, a pretty big task to get done between then, at that point, and November. And who supports it? Do we have the support to take
Well, there's
it?
a few people, there's quite a few people that I've talked to that support this.
20 people, 40 people? Who are the people?
Well, I got some neighbors and friends and that support it.
But we
Did I
need,
go and talk to everybody? No, but that's why I think if we put it to
I
a vote
don't
and see
know
what
until
they.
we vote on it. I don't know.
but we put a lot of stock in Toby in his recommendation of stating, you know, a dollar amount of what our community is capable, I don't remember the exact words or whatever, but this $8 million mark, 8 million, is that correct? Am I correct in saying that?
That was said in June.
Or 6 to 8?
If we look at it, you're first restricted by 10% of your valuation. So that's your maximum. Right now, you know, you can't really go above 9 million.
For a bond vote.
For a bond. And so that's where we looked at that 8, knowing it'd be give and take in the situation of where it is. Now, if you go from 8 to 9 million, there's two things that affect the marketability. Will people vote for 7.95 versus 8.3? I call it the Walmart factor. I'll buy it for $19.99, but not $20. When you go from 8 million to 9 million, your levy goes roughly from 60 cents a thousand to maybe 68 cents a thousand. So $8 on a $100,000 home, $80 on a $1 million farm property. The thing I now look at after what I hear today is, and being the numbers guy, I was asking Dwight earlier, I said, what do you think, was there 1,000 registered voters in the county? 14. So if you have 1,400 registered voters, and let's just say you have a good turnout at 50, 60%, let's just go 50, so you have 700. Well, you have 700 people churn out. Of that 700, you have to have 60%, so now that's 420 people that have to vote yes. If you roughly take the number of people here that are 20, that I'm guessing aren't supporting, and they tell 20 of their best friends not to vote for it, well, that's 400 people, and you can just see how it spirals out of control. That 60% is the toughest thing to achieve. It's miserable. You get a low voter turnout, it's the worst thing for you. And that's just the numbers. That's all I'm saying by the number side, and what you have to take into account when you go to a vote. If you have a split board, I probably done 30 referendums in the state. I don't recall passing a bond when there's a split board vote. I mean, we did it twice in faith, until we've got the full board, and then that third time around, once the full board approved it, then we passed it. And that's just numbers, I mean, that's the reality of it.
So Dean, can I ask you, I guess, a question? In one word, can you give me an answer? Do you think Plan D is the best use of our taxpayers' dollars, the most responsible use of them? And that's putting you on the spot. It is.
How's that separate the shoulder?
I'm saying I'm going with Plan E, because
I asked on Plan D.
I know.
Do you think?
No, I don't think we'll have the support of the teachers.
Okay.
That's my problem.
So
That's
right
why-
here, we have two professionals telling us, without the support, and this plan isn't the best use of our dollars. At what point do we start listening, and are we listening? I am all for taking something to a vote that makes sense. I am not for something taking to a vote, wasting time and money. Because this vote does cost the district money, unless we want to throw that around. And then it goes back to what's the rush? I mean, this January, it has to be done and moving forward. We have a pretty big issue before us, and that's the opt-out. Without the opt-out, we cannot operate. And Jerry, you've told me, you're certain that'll pass.
I would hope it will, but let me ask you, when you were asking for the third gym, what, did you have concern for the opt-out then?
I did. I asked to have that put in a plan for future, whether it was voted on then, that didn't matter to me. To have a layout of an entire facility on these entire grounds, that if someday, whether it was done then or 30 years down the road, if they needed another gym because something failed here, whether that's the case or whatever the case, that it was figured in. That's called planning.
Yeah,
Not limiting yourself.
I just don't think we'll ever get the board on the same page. It's just, I just don't think that'll happen.
Okay, so then back to the opt-out. Why wouldn't we have that in place? And this is no stalling factor at all to this plan. Absolutely none. I'm not sure why we would want to stall. What are we going to gain by stalling it? The only way the reason for the time is so that we are prepared as a board. Are you prepared? What plan? I mean, we haven't even seen this plan.
I would agree. I didn't know this was coming out of the committee meeting. I thought the plan presented with October 8th. I looked at it, I liked it.
Has zero support, and we've been told that it's not the best use of our dollars from somebody from the outside, not even his dollars
The
to
committee's
spend.
been dealing with all these all the time, we've all been seeing these, so you could have got hold of anybody to see these, you could have got hold of Scott to see all these two ahead of time. Not this one, this one we just put together.
Right, I'm saying E,
Yeah,
that we're just seeing.
yeah, we just did that the other because we got to talking, because we came full circle.
And D, nobody saw right till that meeting. Or did you guys
Well,
have?
D
No, that
was-
one
there was
we've
a
had.
variation of D before.
Yeah,
and
we've
then
had that one.
And those changes were made from the building committee before, so it didn't change a lot, but it was presented, the building committee before, and then it was the final one that had the numbers. D
And
was
but
presented.
that came out that night at that meeting, right?
Correct.
The D.
Correct.
Okay.
It came out before.
So it
I talked
wasn't there to
Scott
see
about
before it meeting.
Well, before this last meeting, we had it from the meeting before.
Right, we have from October 8th.
So this has been there.
From October 8th.
I thought I had it from the meeting. This one was, we've had this one for.
He has plan,
Yeah.
he has plan 3 from the meeting.
I've had from the meeting, but I don't remember anymore.
Or
D,
something.
I think the first time, I think D might have been the day of the meeting was the first time that.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's plan 3.
I guess, I'm gonna ask Toby a question here, because I don't know, I've been in education for a long time, it seems like, but, with your experience of having these bond votes, in terms of percentage of school districts, how many school districts, when they put something out for a capital project, say, hey, we're looking to do something, and this is what we're looking for, this dollar amount, or is it, how detailed does a plan need to be for a vote? if you vote on the dollar you're looking for, and ultimately that's what people are gonna vote on. And in your ballot box, I know you don't have a picture of this, but you publish, hey, here's what we're gonna do with the dollars. Is it a half and half across the state? I don't know.
It's usually the project first. So what is the need? Is the need there? Millbank, great example. Met with them in June. They said the need was there. They've been talking through the community. September, they passed a $16 million bond. I didn't even think it was possible to go that quick, but they had told the community the need is there. I don't think anybody disagree here that the need is there. The question is, which need is it? And that's what's dividing you. Redfield, they didn't look at the $2.25 levy that went in place. They looked at the need and the project. And so, yes, the money does drive it, but the project drives it just a little bit more, and that's what gets your solidarity among the constituents to bring it forward. But if you don't have that consensus and solidarity on that for the project, you know, do you go forth and say, split the difference between 8 to 9 million and 8.5 get you both? You could do that if you have the backing of the committee. I truly believe you've got to have backing of the committee, because they're the ones that are going to go out and call it their soldiers to vote. And they're going to vote one way or the other based on what that committee votes. Every successful referendum I've worked on has had that committee. Redfield, I pick on them because they're the closest. They had that committee, they had it going, they had the need, they demonstrated the need. And it was like the $2.20 that mattered. It did, but it didn't. It was that need of what they wanted.
Do you know what their, I guess I can look it up, I was just curious what their voter turnout was on their.
It was really high. It was about, when I say high, it was about 40–45%.
Well, we traditionally, at least over the years, I think have had much, I don't say much higher, but we've had pretty high voter turnout in
The last couple of years.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll be a problem of getting people to the polls. But I'm just a guy that knows really, I don't have any kids in school, let's say I don't have any farmland, and I just have a $50,000 house, and I go in to vote, and, you know, I'm thinking, well, I like 7.8, and maybe this is more of a question, a hypothetical for the community. I look at that and say, yeah, that old school, they need to do something. I think I'm gonna vote yes, and I think we probably would have people that would do that to support the school. But if both of these D and E are essentially the same, I think we'll probably have a lot of people that will also look at it and say, okay, I'm gonna vote, but what am I really voting for? You know, I'm voting for something to happen to the school, but like Jerry said, are we gonna do something, is that roof gonna be fixed or not? Or maybe someone saying, are we gonna have enough room in the high school or not? So maybe I'm saying the same thing you are, in the fact that I think people are gonna wanna know what they're voting for as much as the dollar amount. Somebody mentioned at the, I think it might have been Steve possibly, and Mike Grunwald said too, people wanna know, okay, if I vote for this, how much is it gonna cost me every year moving forward? And maybe that's just a given, but there was some discussion about getting that word out. So pushing it through to November, I don't know, can it be done in January? I think it's
What's your
possible.
average time, Dean? How when you go to community and work on a school, how long do you spend there before you get a vote on a project?
Everyone's different. Everyone's different. Now, we, you know, like Willow Lake and Waverly went fairly quickly, because Waverly needed to be done, same thing with Bison, but Bison had another architect, we were only there in Bison for.
We chewed up architects quicker.
Yeah, I know, and so we came in, we went, like you said, with the building committee, we found what they wanted right away, and, you know, but it was a pre-engineered steel building, but they were their budget, they were driven by budget there too, they said $6 million, so we said this is, and that's where kind of the plan came back, saying, $6 million, this is what you can get, but then we spent with the building committee coming up with a plan that they supported. So that's kind of where we went with this building committee. We were at 9.3, but then, you know, the board, talking to the building committee on the board, and I'm not putting Scott or BJ on, but it's $8 million. That was our number. So then we came back with the $8 million, which we got some blowback for. So we try to address that, and we can continue to address it, just like what Kelly's saying. You know, we have the support of the teachers in Bison, Waverly, those, we did have those. So that's kind of what we look at as a key, for the community, but we also have to have, like addressing what Scott and BJ have talked about, we have to address the 8 million too, and saying, we need, and it has to be the compromise, and that's what we're looking at, what is that balance of the compromise?
So this new plan you brought up, we're not addressing the windows in the elementary then?
No, that's all exterior, and it's like, it can be done. What we looked at, our priority yesterday was the students, saying we're taking care of the interior and addressing the issues that the building committee, and I'm speaking for them, but had said, you know, we want the elementaries, we have to address the elementary kids, but the roof, you know, putting the slope roof on, we're just like what Lisa's talking about, there is some monies in there, we're using tapping, we're trying to find anything we could. We haven't addressed, you know, precast, and things we can look at too for the high school to save money to get within that 6 million in order to give the high school, because when it comes down to it, and this discussion, the building committee was, what is it? The high school is a major code 88 violation. The elementary school we can get by with, we can address the doors, we can do the bathrooms, and meet those needs. The classrooms, and this is just from me from the outside looking in, in order to remodel the classrooms, I can look at the elementary school and say that we can upgrade them and make them better, but we're not changing a lot of them. We're changing a lot that's there. The corridors, let's face it, they're gonna be narrow. They're just the way it is. We're taking a little bit of room out in order to put the cubbies in the room to make it more usable, but it's a compromise, and we were putting money back into the high school because there are so many of those areas that we heard, and I would say, and look at the year, that there were some people some teachers that were very disappointed in D. You know, so we went from C or 3 to D, and it was harsh, but it was the reality of the 8 million. But now we've come back and said, with E, this is the start of the compromise to give the high school what they were, and not do everything in the elementary, but make it better for the kids. And trying to, as an architect, saying, this is what you're giving us, this is what I can give you, but I have to look at the numbers along with the compromise. And we took, in some respects, Buffy and I, we were there, and we wrote down all this stuff, and we met yesterday, and we put it together yesterday, saying, these are the concerns that I'd say with and Steve and all these guys are here. There were some people that just were not happy with D, and Kelly's hit on a lot of those things. We tried to address them with E, but trying to pull the community together and support a plan, so. But the number, from what Toby's telling me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is 8 million, if you're saying that is a reasonable amount within that number. Is it 8.2 or?
You can go up, because your valuation, your valuation is now about 950 million. But I always like to leave a couple $100,000, because you're gonna have computers, you're gonna have buses, those are the kind of leases that you don't wanna go to the max. And last year, when we were looking at your valuation, it was 850, 860,000.
So the scale back elementary, though, we don't know how the elementary teachers would perceive that. I mean, that would be my biggest deal.
Dean, can you tell us real quick exactly what would be done to the elementary?
Yes, well, we tried
You're talking in the new plan, Lisa?
in E. Yeah, well, we updated putting the two restrooms in, remodeling in the kindergarten and preschool, we're remodeling those two toilets. We're redoing the central toilet rooms. We're putting cubbies in the elementary school, we're putting a wall in, which is taking room out of the space, but it's getting the cubbies, and then we'll talk about it, because when I had my daughters there, when you get headlights and it jumps from one kid to the other, and it's not the answer, but I've been in my house when my wife was washing everything in sight and everything, but What they're saying is that you need a cubby, you need a wall between them, and it takes space. I can't do it in 6 inches.
Cubbies in all the elementary.
All the elementary
classes.
schools, and I would say that exactly what Kelly brought up, to eliminate the preschool and kindergarten cubbies, that's Bucky left it in there, that could be accommodated. But then roofing system upgrade, now that is and we're kind of going back and forth, and I knew that there's monies in the budget for that, but we also, when we look at the high school, we're talking, one plan we had, working with the high right as far as precast, we feel we can save some money. We did not put that in there, because we don't have that number, so I just took it out and said, this is a reality, I can save some money, but, so then, the upgraded roof is only 20,000, because we're gonna be using some of your monies that you have. So, but it's not a slope roof, and it's not putting a mechanical system on the roof, they're putting, so we go into the, we'll address that with the HVAC system. New lighting, ceilings and lighting, because that those classrooms need. Sprinkler system, if we're going to do this, we gotta bring it up to code, and you gotta put the sprinkler system in, so we didn't take that out. Classroom doors, update those for the ADA. That, and then the fire alarm system, upgrading that, the plumbing, which would be doing, along with the bathrooms, updating some of the plumbing, electrical, and then split AC system. It's a split system in each classroom, we give it air conditioning, but it's kind of it's a unit in the room, and that would, and you have the tunnel, so we can make sure that we are draining as far as any condensation.
Is that unit on the floor or is it in the ceiling?
It's in the ceiling. Or part, I guess I don't have the exact.
It won't take
there's
up
options.
square footage is what you're
It
saying.
won't take up square footage, so I don't have all that presented. But what we're trying to do, and here again, I put Scott on the hot seat, because we were back at this, I'm gonna say a year ago, Scott, when we were, and everybody said, well, whatever, that spring meeting, we were at 700,000, and we got kind of jumped, and then we turn around and come back to it now, because we're saying, what can we do in updating? So our priority, when we're at least doing this, was saying, update the interior of the classrooms. We did put the roof on, we did do this, the windows, and we didn't do the windows on the outside. That can be done later, and it doesn't impact the teachers. So we are trying to put as much as we could in for making the teachers and everything work better for them. So that's what it was. And it ended up being $1 million. We were trying to be at 700,000, and we didn't get there, so.
So then we're back to, you said, some of those things could be done later. Well,
Next year, if you.
but we have another list, and I listed those, I guess, at the last meeting, just shut them off of areas that aren't even being touched. So we're going to our public, asking for money, and we've got a whole lot of areas. I know there's a lot of people that have the opinion, if you're gonna do it, just do it and get it done. Now, is the time right now to do all of this? I don't know. Do you do it, set it up to do it in phases?
That's what we wanted to do.
And you could do alternate. We've always said,
And you wanted to start with the elementary though, and that's the
Yeah,
least
we
of our
wanted to do
concern.
it, yeah, we wanted to do it in phases, yeah. That
But
was
the
our
reason we were
goal.
doing that is because it wasn't gonna be,
That's all
it was
we
gonna
wanna
cost
do
us
all
much, we
along
could do it
is-
in a short amount of time.
But that's
You'd have
not
a
our,
couple
Cap,
years to
and then
work
move
on
to
the high school.
That's why we kinda would.
this isn't our major concern, the elementary. The high school is the #1 major concern.
Yeah, but we're addressing everything that needs to be addressed in elementary.
You're
What
addressing
we're doing
everything.
right now, that's what we wanted to do earlier, and then we're gonna focus all of our attention on the high school.
I didn't follow that.
I said, that's what we were looking at a year ago, that's what we're addressing, like Dean was saying. Addressing the needs that need to be done in elementary, we're gonna address them. And then when those were addressed, then we're gonna focus on the high school. And we figured a couple years working at it.
But the elementary,
then
why would
all
you
of a
start with
sudden-
the elementary when that's
Why?
the
Because it was a
least?
quick, easy, pretty cut and dry, what needs to be, needs to be done.
The easiest and
And now-
cheapest, but if we don't need that as much as we need the
Well,
high
yeah,
school, then
we still need this. Yeah, I understand the high
The
school.
roof is
grade
leaking
need,
on the
yes.
elementary, that's my biggest concern.
But yeah, this is
The
still
roof
need.
can be fixed, but that's,
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to fix the roof and fix the bathrooms and fix everything that needs to be
which we
fixed in
repaired.
elementary, yeah.
We repaired, and if those
Which is
repairs
leaking again now.
in those same spots.
Same spot, but the elementary roof's leaking again.
Well, they said it would take maintenance when they did this repair. They would go up and check on a yearly basis, and it would take some maintenance, but it was $1,000, I don't remember the dollar figure offhand, but as with anything, you kind of have that until you didn't put a new roof on.
Well, Scott, what do you think of this plan? I mean, the plan A, I mean, should a guy have one more building committee and run that by him, or?
We can,
Because
the insulation deal's a big deal for me too, kind of, but, I mean, that's 62,000, we do have the money in our budget too, so that's something we could work into there, so.
Roof, you mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, for like the ZFS and the windows, I mean, we have some other money too that we put aside, I mean, I don't know if we might have the money, something I have to look into.
And then back to the elementary to go in and do updates. Of course, updates and everything are nice. Give it a different look, whatever. If you're not meeting all your needs, that's another thing. But Dean, what is being proposed, let's say in this Plan D? Dollar for dollar to remodel this the way you had it in Plan D, dollar-wise, how does that compare to if that was torn down and rebuilt?
I think we had a number of 2.3, which was it depends on how large you went, if you're replacing.
If you redid just this, the exact same thing,
I thought we were like 2.7 is where we're at, I guess I don't have any numbers with me.
For square footage wise, we're using 14,500 square feet, and we're at $203 a square foot now. So you're looking at $12 million.
and that's with contingency and everything
That's just if you've
unexpected.
taken that number, yes, you know, what Jerry's saying.
Not just a new or remodel number.
Right. You're
With,
saying new. If you took the numbers that they're talking about, 14,000 square feet times 200, you're talking 2.8 million.
But, yeah, but is that gonna fly? I mean, want bigger rooms, it might get, it'll get more than that.
and if it did get a little bit more and it met the needs and
Uh,
hallways and
you're
everything
gonna get
was
it passed.
taken care of?
You might be like Redfield right now. I got some friends over there, and I mean, things are.
So, Kelly, you're worried about the opt-out, but yet you wanna increase the project cost. I don't get that. You're worried about their opt-out, you don't wanna do nothing, but yet.
The
you-
opt-out
you
needs
don't
to
want-
be in place. Those are our operating dollars. These are separate beasts, if you want to call them that. Completely separate. The opt-out will operate what we have going. Without that, what are you willing
So
to
you
cut
just
from our
wanna stop
programs?
until we do.
So what happens if we wait a year, like some people say, and this spring the opt-out fails, then what? Then
In the
what?
spring, then we certainly, this isn't an option at that point. None of this would be an option.
Yeah.
So my question to you, if we take this plan forward to a vote and it fails, are you guys in favor of the opt-out still?
I voted for the opt-out before, I would vote for it.
Would you go out and pound the pavement to support the opt-out if this plan fails?
Try my best. I'm not gonna go door to door, probably not, no, but every person.
For the operating cost of
You mean if
the-
we take this to a vote,
Person, yeah.
then this doesn't go through?
Correct.
And then you think the opt-out wouldn't, because we took this to a vote?
I'm asking if you would still support the opt-out if
If
this
this
went to a
failed.
vote in November and failed.
I mean, if
Well,
it
yeah.
failed, I wouldn't be.
If we take this to a
Yeah.
vote and if, I just think people should have a chance to vote on it, I just think. that's the way it should be.
Absolutely, but are we ready? We don't even know
And
ourselves
I think if this
what plan.
passed, I think it's very, very unlikely, well, we've talked to Toby, but I just, very unlikely that the opt-out would pass, if we took this and it did pass.
But you don't know that. I mean,
Well, it could not pass either way, if we did it or we don't do it. It was close before, right? Did you say it was really?
Right, but if we
tight?
don't have that opt-out, we certainly don't need to be looking at this because we're already cutting programs.
I know, but it could go either way. See if it passes or it doesn't pass.
You don't know that, right?
Yeah, I know you don't. you don't know either way. If we don't do this, I've talked to people that if we don't give them a chance to vote, they're gonna
We are
vote
gonna
against
give
it.
them a chance to vote. That was already made known. But we don't have the plan ready and in place. I mean,
Well, when does the opt-out have to be voted on? I mean, when do we,
Between January and July.
yeah, so.
right around the corner,
If it gets referred.
if it gets
The
referred.
board votes on it in January.
Right.
And then if it gets referred, I would assume we'd have the vote right away. So we could try again if it fails.
No, I guess, I'm fine with having another meeting. I thought the committee was pretty close. I mean, we can take this back. There's a few things in the elementary that were taken out that I think we gotta, I mean, I think we really need yet, but.
I mean, I think that Plan E, I mean, Dean, I don't even know if you'd have to draw up another, I mean, it's that turn, converting that one room.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And then-
pretty easy.
But I'm hearing from Kelly, she don't want nothing done until we get the opt-out. I mean, is there any point in even proceeding until?
You have to plan for these things. These things
Well,
don't
I would
happen
think we have
overnight.
one more committee meeting, as much as I.
What if we had a
as I
committee
got
meeting and
1,000 other
everybody's
things going
together
on,
on,
but-
on this, pretty much?
If you can get the support of your committee, do you have 80% support of the building committee?
On Plan D, I don't know, but Plan E is a different animal. But,
I don't think on Plan D we did.
I don't know, there's just,
But I mean, I also said that I did ask what they didn't like about it, and they had a few things that I really didn't, to me, it wasn't enough not to vote for it. To me.
I just know doing all new, addressing everyone's needs. I mean, you're gonna be 12 million, you're gonna be closer to 12 million than you are 8.5. You said we could max it out at 9.
I don't think anybody wants that.
So
I
at
was
this-
here the other night.
At this point with the building discussion, can we ask any of the committee members if they have anything to add from your take of the meeting and where you stand?
You know, you can recognize somebody, ask.
Well, anybody that's on the committee, Gary or Tammy or,
Well, I guess I was under the understanding we was gonna present Plan B to the board and they upgraded a little bit. And I really haven't had a chance to look at it. But as me on the committee, I look at it that Plan B was a good starting point. I ain't saying it's gonna vote tomorrow.
do you feel we're ready to take it to a vote?
Push come to shove, I'd take it to a vote.
Well,
Just to let the people have a chance to understand what's going on. Either that or else you gotta get a community meeting together and get everybody in here and sit down.
Well, that has to be done regardless.
You know, and then let the public give their opinion of what they think. Because that'd be the next step as far as I'm concerned.
But you think, that as far as the committee goes, everything, every stone has
Well,
been,
we're never all gonna agree, trust me.
I get that.
Never
But
all
you
gonna
can
agree.
come together and have a consensus of,
But I think if we had to, if push come to shove, we could come to a consensus that D would probably be one of the better options to go. And so I'd push, get a couple committee together and show them Plan B or E now that they got it upgraded. And see what the public has to say. Whether it's going to vote or at a meeting. That's the only way you're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Tammy, do you have any thoughts, or Dwight, or Steve, or?
Well, our meeting, last meeting got a little long, and so we kind of left it, I felt like feathers were kind of laying everywhere, so I think another meeting would be a good idea, especially to see this new plan. It's not gonna hurt for the rest of us to get together and toss things around. I think everybody, I'm not speaking for everybody, but that's how I kind of felt when we left the meeting, that it just got late, it got late on us. And seeing a new plan, so I think it's not gonna hurt to look over things and evaluate things.
Do you feel there's a rush for this push to have a vote in November, that it needs to happen like right now? Are we prepared for that at this
Well, when-
point?
Not to interrupt
We
you.
did a lot of homework and we've.
Not
done
in
a lot of
November?
talking and-
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
We've did a lot of homework and a lot of talking, and I realize there's a consensus of, everybody has a different opinion, But sooner or later, we're gonna have to bring it to a public vote. We can sit and
Absolutely.
argue and, you know, discuss things, but sooner or later, it's gonna have to come to a vote.
Right, and it does have to, there's no way around that.
Pardon?
It does have to come to a vote, there's no way around that. It's just, are we prepared at this point? And it was
I
said
don't
that,
have time to look at this new plan.
that you, well, from the other night,
Another meeting, another couple of weeks. I don't know what I don't want to speak for the rest of the board members. But I feel like after a couple of weeks, I will be prepared to let the public make a decision.
But Kelly, I get, you're not in favor of voting on anything until we vote on the opt-out. Is that what I'm getting? from
yeah, I
you?
think we need the opt-out
Okay,
first.
Then we're getting late for bids, I mean, for this coming year, so are we put off our vote another year?
We could,
Here's my fear. Last couple months, I've been working with school districts on the opposite side, and that's cutting budgets. And more are having to go to that opt-out. And what's happening, for the committee to understand, what the state did to you on teacher salaries and what they forced you into and what they're not giving back in return is forcing a lot of these districts to make tougher and tougher cuts. And what I see happening is, first of all, protecting your general fund budget. You'll have a building, it's not the best building, it's gonna leak, it's gonna have issues, but if you don't have staff to staff that building, your band room doesn't matter, because ask Custer, that's the first thing to start to go, is the band. And then football will be the last, but they just go down the line. You don't have some, some of the special ed stuff. It starts to get out of control more and more because of what's going on that's forcing these schools into opt-out. Redfield has a beautiful new building, but you saw what happened with the opt-out. It's a tough fact that's hitting the state right now because there's not the funding available. And that's just what I see. I'm going to Rapid next week to work with that school because they're gonna have to make some serious cuts or do an opt-out. And, passing an opt-out in Rapid City, those guys make you look all liberal, they're so conservative.
Dean and Toby, when do you think is the latest date we could have the election without it hurting our bids?
Or is that even a concern, Dean, about
It's
bids
not-
and how late you let them out?
no, it's not, if you're going to, we'd have to, if we're gonna remodel the elementary schools, we gotta hit that in the summertime. So, that wouldn't take us that long to do that, but the school, we talked about, you're gonna have to make, if you do the school, whenever you start, you could start demoing in August, but you're gonna have to have places, you're gonna have to make, it's gonna be more of you deciding, where we're gonna put these high school students, because we're gonna demo the high school. That is what's gonna happen. So you're gonna have to decide, are you gonna have classes in here and that, so it's gonna be, how long, I can start construction as long as I start, latest is October, which, if you're doing it in school, I need 45 to 90, 120 to 180 days in order to get a high school done. You do 3 months. You do 3 months.
What I think Lisa's asking too
He didn't answer
is,
the question.
Oh.
is if we vote in February, is there time in
Yes.
February to let the bids out? Are there gonna be companies out there that are available,
Yeah, 'cause
and
you're gonna-
crews
you're gonna
available,
miss the
that
first-
will be on site to
Yeah,
do
you're
the
gonna miss the
construction?
first round of totals, the first construction is out and bid in January, February. That's your first round. The second round is after that, and then where you need to start construction in August, September, October is the latest, we would say, for bid prices. But BJ brought this up, as you go and you look at that, if you do you hope that you're gonna move forward. That the building committee can come to 80%, I think Tammy said 80% acceptance, or maybe Kelly did. That's what you're kind of looking for, because you don't always get everybody in agreement. But a year from now, if we're still arguing about this, you're going up 5%. BJ asked me that, and Greg looked up steel prices. It is what's gonna happen nationally, that could change some things, but.
But I
Like
think
Lisa said-
that 5% increase
Yeah.
could be minimal if you push something through and don't do it right the first time.
That's why you.
Otherwise, if the opt-out keeps failing, this probably won't happen at all. point we just put elevators in the
I
high
would-
school now?
If you have your opt-out that first week in January, you're gonna know if it's referred. You're gonna know right off the bat. You could have a vote in the middle of January, and I know it's, 60, 90 days away, but whether you have that vote at the end, the earliest you can have the vote now, I think, is probably November 27th, the way notices work and all that. Was that my essentially the calendar, that Tuesday after Thanksgiving? So
I'm
whether
just-
you have it then, or whether you have it first week of December, if you have that opt-out then, that's gonna be your political test in the community of, do they support you?
I'm saying that the building committee, which Tammy, Steve, and Dwight were still there, and Jim and I, boys, sorry, was long, but we did not, when we left, we did not have their support. I would say that. And I think we can have that. I think we can, if another meeting like Scott and DJ both said they agreed to, I think we would have to have that. You know, we weren't gonna make November, this January. To me, it's critical that we have the support of the building committee. And
Was
that-
there anybody else that had anything to say from the building committee?
Well, I guess from my point, every time we came to a meeting, I know Dave said earlier that we failed. I don't think we failed really. But every time we came to a meeting, there was a different plan. And so you gave, it's not like you gave the plan blessing like Plan D. You looked at it and, you know, the staff had more input on why it wouldn't work than what some of the rest of the other 6 of us did. They had things that they said just wouldn't fit their deal. But I think you need to get to a point where you have that meeting and kind of say, yeah, we like this plan, and you tweak it a little bit, and then you go back and you say, yep, we all pretty much agree this is the plan to take out. Then, like he said, like Toby said, 80% of those 20 people there don't go out and poison the community, because right now, I'm thinking that they probably would. I mean, there's people in the community, like BJ said the other night, that he thinks will pass, and I know there's people out there that want to vote, that think it will pass, but what if it didn't? You know, then you're setting yourself up for another struggle down the road, and if the money wasn't right this time, it's probably not gonna be right next time either. So I would say have another meeting, tweak the plan that just got presented today, and if the staff like that, and you 2 board members would agree with the staff on whatever changes they might want, and then come back one more meeting after that and say, okay, if the numbers are right, and Toby can come up with a plan that works to present to the public, and you as a board totally understand those numbers so that you can stand up, because it's going to be your project. And I can tell you from experience, these projects consume you. They don't, it's not like buying a car or a pickup and you walk away from it. You spend 2 to 3 years trying to make sure that you got it financed right, built right, and then all the things that show up after it's built that the architect didn't get quite right, figured out, or the construction manager or the person doing the construction didn't get it right. It takes a lot of time to fix all that.
And then I still have a question about like a construction manager. At what point do you bring them in? Because I don't know, HKG, have they ever gone over on a project?
That's the what?
Have they ever gone over on a project dollars?
If I could respond to that, we had Shive Hadry, which had jail experience, do our drawings. And so they did the drawings, we agreed with contract with them. We give that to the construction manager, we had 5.5 million bond. And when the construction manager brought it back to us the first time, he said, this is a Cadillac that they've drawn you. He said, this will take 7.3 million. And so then it was the construction manager's job to dial that down, because he was hired at risk to get that down to that number that we were approved for.
So my thought would be is if we're gonna ask for 7, 8, or whatever that number is, and we don't have anybody look at that, and then it needs to be dialed back, what are we gonna take out even more?
I think Dean said the other night that you could have a construction manager kind of look at the plan. And it might not be a bad idea before you.
It wouldn't
go to
be at
public
risk, though, you can.
Compare numbers.
Right, and that's what Steve brought up. I mean, and we had a construction manager, they're always, it's not like I wouldn't say that we lost anything out of the project.
No, they just turned steel into block, because block
Yeah,
was cheaper than
you
steel.
make adjustments, and then I said that the other day at the meeting, I mean, if it comes down to it, we talked about having, and you get the different schools around Redfield, has roofs going every direction, that, you might end up with, a flat roof. We look at precast versus the steel studs, that's what we did Steve and I were at every meeting, or about every meeting. It's a weekly meeting, and we're making decisions, that's what our job was. They hired Hatterley, we were underneath them. We were every week making the decisions, because architects don't make any errors, it's the engineers. They will attest to that. But we got the project. You go down and look at that jail, and it is a nice project. It's not like we're giving up something. Our numbers, are they 100% correct? No. But we can look at options. It's not like you're giving up something, but you gotta look at alternates. Just like Steve said, instead of this, in this case was the jail, cells that were all steel, and those are the Cadillac, and we went to block, because we look at options. And that's what we do with, we've already talked about having, getting contractors involved to do the precast, which we just bid in Redfield, and we came in under budget, where we took the precast panel and set them on their side, and they're putting walls, or windows and everything in, and it looks like, it's gonna look like the courthouse. But it's not, it's precast, it's not steel studs and brick and all that. But those are things that you do. So that's where we bring a construction manager. They're not gonna do it at risk, number one, before you do the bond. But you can bring him on, and you can pick your construction manager. He can evaluate the plans, and then you're going to work, we've done enough of these projects, and Toby, I'd say, that since Gettysburg, and we always say that, we haven't been over on a project in 6 years, the last 6 years. We just don't, because we are working with these contractors, and we know what the numbers are. We do the alternates, like you brought up, Kelly. We have the kitchen, and we have the bathrooms in the lobby, but we don't have the locker rooms, we don't have the old shop. Those are alternates, and like in Bison, they took every alternate, because we got the project down, we worked with the construction manager, made those decisions, and we came in under budget, and they were able to take all their alternates, but you have to have that initial budget, the initial bid under the budget. Then it gives the board the flexibility to take, add on, increase, do, add a classroom if you want, make the library bigger, those types of things, so.
Well, from what you said that night in October, this Plan D,
Yeah.
any of the contingency funds would be used up when that elementary remodel was done.
Well, I kind of missed it. I said the places where that will get used up is in the elementary school, because you're opening up walls. I'm not saying that that's where they're gonna get used up, but if there's a spot that they're gonna come in, it's the elementary school, because that's where you deal with things you didn't anticipate.
So if the majority of them are going there, that leaves a whole lot of the project, the vast
Right.
majority of the project.
But we're not saying that they're using that. I'm just saying that if you have a spot that, if you're gonna put it, we're not anticipating it. We have numbers built in there to anticipate some of it, but I'm not saying we're using contingency funds there, it's just that that's.
Well, you said that at the October meeting.
But I didn't mean it, I meant that they're gonna, the chances of remodeling are more using contingencies than if you're building them. That's what it comes down to. I'm not committing saying that we're gonna spend them all there.
So, okay, so if we have another building committee meeting, I think what would be most beneficial, we have been through, I can't even keep track of all the plans that we've had. And so if we're getting to a point where we need to come up with a plan, like Steve's talking about, I really feel like we need to have a list from you. Because one time, the bathrooms and the cafeteria weren't included. And then we came back at October 8th, and now they're included. And so when we have our building committee meeting, I think we need to understand, if we're gonna look at Plan E, I'd like to see a list of, there's a sidewalk that's on there between the middle school, high school, and elementary. Is that just there to make it look pretty, or is that really gonna be there as part of the project?
Right.
Is the bathroom in the current kitchen and cafeteria area, is that still gonna get remodeled as part of this, or not?
and go through that list like you just did, no windows, no EPAS.
Right.
I mean, I think we need to know what is actually gonna be there, because if we don't know that, I think then we just spin our wheels and, you know, we think things are in there and they aren't, and then 2 more plans come out, and now they're all different, and then we just keep going. I mean, we were making great progress, I thought.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we had to kind of pull things back because we were getting a little out of line. And then, you know, things are changing, and I think people are just really confused. And I'm not blaming you.
No,
I think,
I'm
you
not,
know.
there's some of that is ours, but what we have to do, for this building committee to make this one work, you need to take this planning, get it to your staff, and give them a week or so to give us any kind of, so we can tweak it. Not that we're gonna change everything, get that to us, but then we are going to send you a plan E or F, and then that's gonna be available to everybody ahead of time. So we don't show up that night and say, this is the plan that we are looking at tonight, and it addresses.
But I think too, Nat, I agree with that, but I also think too that I need to get a little bit of direction from the school board in saying that it can't be over 8 million. And if, a lot of times if I let my staff look at it, I mean, you saw what happened last time. We went from 8 whatever up to 9.3 now. There's gotta be some limits that I give them to say, look at this, we gotta figure out a way to make it work, but we can't get bigger because that's what increases the cost.
Right,
is the
we're
square
gonna have
footage.
alternates. We will have this time, and if they come back and say, we need the library bigger or something, we'll say, okay, this is our base plan, which is like 7.9 million, and this is an alternate, which will be 100,000 or whatever, or 50, and that's, because our base plan has gotta be what you say the number is, and then you take that impact, put back from the teachers, and if there's something, we have to just say, this is where, if it comes in within the numbers, you can add that.
And I don't expect my staff to say, you know, we need this bigger, huger Cadillac model. What I do expect is, I like my staff to have input on where rooms need to be in a building, how close, so I don't have an elementary class that's walking 5 minutes from one end of the elementary building all the way up, that's lost instructional time.
Right.
I don't want that to happen. So give me the box that I can fit things in, let my staff decide where the things fit in that box for $7.9 million, and they'll have a plan that they can support. If they're not allowed to make those changes and things are gonna be where they're at and it makes no sense instructionally, then it's gonna be hard to get support, I think, of a lot of people on the building committee. But, you know, those parameters, I need the parameters, and I need to know what extras are gonna be there, but they need to have some input, but not whole hog and let's come up with a $12 million plan.
That goes through you.
Yep.
And then,
And with parameters, I do think the committee should look at what you're getting for your money. And if we're willing to spend 8 million and we've got a shortfall of several things that we're looking at, look at some of those things, put it to pen and paper and figure out, what is this gonna cost everybody each year, an additional how much more to have these other things included? Let the voters see that. Because like I said, I've had people come up to me on the street and say, get the job done right the first time. What is that? Do we not give them that option to see that? Or at least do our research on it so we ourselves know?
So you want to spend more than 8 million?
I would like to address the majority of our concerns. Right now, I have a whole lot of concerns with this, and that doesn't even touch on all the areas that aren't even being looked at.
But I think it gets back to our committee meeting, I thought it was pretty close, really.
Close to
I heard
what?
one teacher say, I was all on board, I heard her say that, until we didn't connect it, you know, and we took a few things out, so I mean.
Well, I think we do what Scott here said, telling you to have another board meeting, we're just going around and around here, we got things to do.
Well, I don't know if, Kelly, you'll ever get on board because you want to spend more than 8 million. I don't know, I don't think you'll ever be on board with
That
this.
works.
With Plan D, I'm gonna say no, but.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask something? A lot of times in situations like this, your committee is your marketing arm. If it's 7.9 or if it's 8.3, maybe it's a fair question to ask the committee, would you go and sell it wholeheartedly to the community if it is 8.3 because it solves all the issues? And I know I'm the one that said the 8 million, and every time you say a number, it sticks, and there's reason for it. But if you're over a couple $100,000, I guess it really comes down to the committee, because they're your soldiers. They're the ones that are gonna get that pass for you. They really are. So if you have the consensus of plan E, F, G, or H, I mean, Steve, you sold the bond. I mean, is that a fair question to ask of?
You gotta have the biggest share of that committee behind it, or it will fail, just like, it's already been said here, and I agree with PJ, we're just kind of spinning our wheels here right now, but you're just gonna have to get that plan, that committee, not 100% has to support, but you're gonna have that teaching staff, because I think the taxpayer's gonna say, if the teachers don't want it, why would we want it? I think that's gonna be something that's gonna come back. To sell that bond, I mean, you gotta have more people than you think, because there's 20% of people against everything all the time. So that means you gotta have 80% of the rest of them.
But when you did the jail, you didn't have a committee. I mean, I didn't know we were gonna build a jail, except for a couple months before you put right in here, you had the meeting, but I didn't know we were looking at a jail. I mean, I had heard rumors, but I mean, you didn't have community meetings for a year or two before that. I mean,
No, because we kept trying to gather information. It took 7.5 years before we felt comfortable coming to the people. And actually, at probably 6.5 years, we thought we were ready to come to the people, and then we had looked at our budget and says, well, it's not gonna work, because we won't be able to budget to run it. Well, then the legislature gave us Senate Bill 1, which allowed us, because road and bridge is your biggest expenditure in any county, and they just drain you because of the price of road oil and whatnot to run that. And so once the legislature gave the county Senate Bill 1 to replace that money for your roads and stuff, then we had funds to operate and budget the jail, kind of like the opt-out that you guys are faced with. So that's why it took us so long. We looked at remodeling the old hospital and worked with Dean early on that, and it was actually more to remodel than it was to build new. During that time, we did geothermal for the courthouse, and we had a jail, so we added enough loops and everything to take care of that. So we had our heating system pretty well, in place for the new jail. I think you brought up a good point when you called me that night about how many schools had built on elementaries, and had old elementaries. And I think, you're right, there's just a lot of them did that.
Well,
The high school was their let me finish, Jerry.
Yeah.
High school where there was their biggest need, and I think maybe, when I was on the school board, the building that you're talking about, the roof leaked then, and about every other year, Twin City Roofing got about 20 grand out of us to resurface that roof back then with what they had. And so, looking at the other schools after we had that conversation, I think what they did was the high school was the oldest part, and so they replaced the high school, and they attached it to that grade school the best they could. But even like in Hoban, they didn't do anything to that grade school. They didn't go in there and remodel it. And I know when I toured that day, it's like 6 or 8 years newer than this one, but it's similar construction. Same way with Highmore when they built their new high school. Now they're remodeling the grade school when we were there. And Tammy brought this to the meeting the other night, and I think everybody was so confused about the new plan we had, they probably should have jumped on what she was saying, because she said, as a compromise in business, we don't all just do everything new at once. We do things in stages. And her idea was to do the high school that we had the picture in front of us and put the Band-Aid on the grade school, just to buy more time, and then go ahead sometime down the road, some other outfit would bond to do a new grade school. So, I mean, again, we were getting to compromises, I think, with different people on the committee. I do see where you could attach a new building to an old building and be just fine.
I'm pretty sure, Dean, you're not willing to drive down here for the next 7 years, so it'll be something.
No, well, you know, it's what, you know, not, I hope it's not 7 years, we've already been in this for 4 or 5, I mean, I was here way back then, we were out and back and been here. You know, we all know, I think Vulcan people know that they have to do something, it wasn't a good year, you know, we talked about that, I mean, every rain managed to miss, Vulcan, you know, so it is harder with the farmers, but, I mean, we have to, just as like, I think everybody's agreeing, Kelly, Steve was saying, we got to, the building committee, I think we're closer with E, and I think that I'd like to get some input back and come with a plan and get it out and bring all these and say, these are alternates, this is all the things we're including, break it down and come and then try to commit to that building committee to get their support, because that's where we're really at right now, you know, and if it takes a year, I'm hoping that it's not, you know, 5 more years, but I'll be retired and then everybody else will deal with that, so.
Well, and
that's
even
what
if the
we're looking at
committee
here.
looks at putting a price tag on some of those other things that aren't being touched, you look at it, you put a price to it, this is what it would cost, but at least you're looking at it and putting that number out there for people to see.
But how much are you willing to do? I mean, you said you get a plan.
We're really past that right now, we're just going to, but we are gonna do, I really agree, and I said it to Scott and BJ, and really this is where we kind of put Scott on the other night, I just told Scott, I said, I'm gonna come up with another plan, and I said that we're gonna work on Thursday, get it done, and then, but I think we need one more building committee, I agree with both BJ and Scott saying, let's have it, let's see where we can, if we can bring this group together, our building committee, and come to this board, and if it's January, I'm concerned, I don't wanna do this and not have it pass. I gotta be able to say, somebody asked me, is this what you support? I'd say yes. This is the compromise. This gets, if we can get 80%, 90% of the teachers support it, that's what we need. They're, like Tony said, they're the soldiers, they're out there, it's the building committee, these people that come to these meetings. If we can come to a meeting, they come next time. And the building committee is saying they support this plan to these people who aren't on the building committee, saying, okay, we'll look at it, because then they will look at it and say, we can support it, so.
Are you gonna support this if we're just concentrating on this without looking at the rest of the facility? The locker room, you know, you brought up the locker room.
I think it needs to be looked at, and once you
So,
see the dollar
that's not my
amounts.
question. If they come up and the committee comes up to with consensus, I wanna do this, are you gonna be on board without looking at the locker room?
I'm not gonna say one way or another, I would hope that I would be there, but until I see it, because this Plan D, I will not.
I think I'd like to concentrate on the education part. These two right here addresses the education. The
If
other
you
part-
wanna concentrate on education, Plan D limits us in education. What are we gonna do if we wanna move 6th grade?
Plan D.
What's that?
I said we quit talking about Plan D, we're on Plan E.
Jerry
So,
mentioned that's was the
All right,
one.
we just said we're having another building committee with Plan E.
Okay,
Okay, all right, so quit
Which one are
throwing
you-
Plan D around. We just
We
came to
were
an
having a
agreement,
building
we're
committee
going to
on
Plan
the new
E.
Plan E
We're gonna discuss some
brought.
things.
okay.
Jeez, sit there.
But are you gonna drop the locker room? I mean, we gotta know if you're gonna get on board with this, if they come.
When I see the plan,
Are you gonna drop the locker? The locker room is not on this plan.
there's a lot of things not on this plan. Not just a locker.
Well, if everything you wanna address will never pass, I know it won't.
Well, I say we move forward with that, let's do Marcy and Lepke here. We're just here, go round and round. You already said Plan D is.
Great, BJ.
All right,
Work the
yes,
plan.
okay, Kelly, okay. All right.
Well, I guess we need to set a committee meeting up and work on Plan E, I guess.
And I think the other thing too, just so everybody's aware, is, you know, there are other areas that need to be addressed. I mean, I think people can agree to that. The problem with it is, I think we need to look at our overall finances, our general fund, our capital outlay. We're paying some general fund expenses out of our capital outlay right now. maybe if the opt-out passes, we could take those items out of the capital outlay back to general fund and rework some of our finance to address some of those other areas that aren't necessarily attached to a bond issue at this time. And then we'll still address them, we'll put them on our list of things that need to get done. We'll come up with a 5 or 10 year plan to fix the roof, to fix the locker rooms, all out of separate money that's not associated with the bond issue. I think there's ways of doing it if we just sit down and have our constructive conversations about it.
I got a question for you, Toby. If the board can approve the opt-out and extend it, then we can hope it won't get referred, but I'm pretty certain it's going up. And would it just be better to put it out there? Maybe that would, people got the vote, and I guess my feeling is if we let them vote, maybe they're feeling, or we're not trying to deprive them of their vote on the opt-out. I'm pretty certain that it's gonna get referred.
I sometimes get my cities and schools confused, but I don't know if you can take it directly to a vote. You
Well,
can't.
we can.
Yeah, so you let it get referred.
Okay.
We vote to renew it, then the public would have to take the steps.
I thought the
I don't
text
know
you
about that.
sent me
I think
said the
you
opposite.
can.
You can't take it to a vote?
I think you can. I think a lot of this though is gonna have to be how it's promoted and how the information gets out there. The public has voted on it. They voted on it 5 years ago. It passed by 63%. We're not asking for any more money, and we haven't taken what we've asked for, except for 1 year. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, if the right information gets out there and the board promotes it and it goes through. We asked for $450 the first year, only got half of that. We asked for $450 the second year, got all of it, and then the 3 years after that, I think it was around that 300, maybe 290 and 200 maybe. So we haven't abused it, we haven't taken all of it, and I don't think we'll have to. So as long as the board promotes it and gets that information out there, we're not asking for more, we're asking for the same amount.
To me, I can't stress enough on that opt-out, because with the new formula, each kid is worth $8,000 to the school. You lose a little bit of enrollment, you lose 10 kids, that's 80 grand, that's a teacher and a half. It just, you take that 250 and you lose that.
But if, I don't know, I've heard that it's gonna get referred. I'm not gonna doubt people what they tell me. I mean, would it be better just to be up front and let them vote on it?
I think it'd be better to say what Lisa just went through and explain what you've done with the money, so it doesn't get referred. I guess I would do what I can to prevent the referendum than to go to one.
So we got a committee date set.
I'll have to work on that with Dean, because I don't even know how much time he'll need to get all that stuff.
Let's
together.
set it when we're ready for everybody, and then, because we got, if we can get it in the next 3 weeks, that's fine, but let's not. Let's get ready to meet with the committee and have to plan out so everybody can get ahead of time.
I'd like to do it kind of soon. I mean, I don't want to push it back.
Well, it's gonna be up to you.
A month or month and a half. I mean, I want to.
No, I was saying
with
next
it
3
fresh.
weeks. Next 3 weeks, but I don't think we said. So we'll get things done. We'll meet with you, get that input, so.
So how we doing on, I mean, do we owe you more than 25,000?
No, you're not. That's a max. We're fine.
Pro bono.
Yeah. Hourly rate's going down. We're fine.
Okay, we're done with this part. Then we'll move on to number 6, open forum time. Anybody? Randy?
And I just want to say thanks. I appreciate all your effort. I appreciate your work. to me, some of this was redundant, some of it went around and around, but that's what a committee does. It takes time and effort, and it takes tempers at 1 minute that level off later when everybody realizes that all they want is the best for their community and for their school. The one other thing I have to say, and this is incredibly personal to me, I've been here a long time, and the word teachers keeps being tossed out again and again. And I just want everybody in this room to remember, if you don't know already, that you have one of the best staffs that any district could ever hope for. And all any one of those people want is the absolute best for your children, your grandchildren, and the people of this community. They are not obstructionists by nature. They just want, they're not selfish by nature. They don't want glorious rooms or glorious buildings to show off to anybody. They want good facilities to educate your children, your grandchildren, and so forth. And I just want you to remember that you are lucky to have all of them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Chair, if I could just say, because I think, are we going to adjournment?
Yep.
If we're gonna have special meetings, the last minute type of deals for big things like this, I had a couple phone calls between yesterday and today about the time of the meeting, and with everybody working and having it such short notice, and actually when I got my message, it was less than 23 hours in advance, and by law, the school board is required to give a 24-hour notice, and so I don't want to be a part of setting ourselves up. I have the message.
The text that went out.
The text that we got.
The agenda was posted within 24 hours as required by law.
Okay. But then it must have been fairly close, because an 8:30 meeting today would have been posted by 8:30 yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was.
But to keep that in mind and keep the patrons in mind when setting meetings like this for such a big ticket item type of a deal.
Okay, we need a motion and a second for adjournment.
I'll make motion.
All in favor?
Okay.